It's time to do diligence. Here's your host, Wiley.
Welcome back to Season 1, Episode 7 of Due Diligence. In our last episode, we talked about diligence as it relates to the subject of leadership. We dispelled of some common leadership myths, and we discussed what genuine Bible leadership is all about. And we really focused on the heart or the attitude that God wants us to have when we are influencing other people. Today, I want us to move from that discussion to another discussion, the value of diligence as it relates to hard work. And this may seem like a difficult thing to hear, but diligence is a lot of hard work. That's the reality. If something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. And so when you do something, you are going to invest a lot of time and a lot of energy, a lot of effort, money, mental capacity, and you are going to have to make sacrifices in order to do things with diligence. And why is that? It's because diligence is hard work. And because of that, life is not going to always be butterflies, lollipops, and unicorns. Things are not always going to go your way. You will also have to make some difficult choices because some things will take priority over other things. And that means that diligence also involves wisdom so that you can make wise choices that will help you use your time in the most effective way possible. You see, diligence may be fun to talk about at times, and the rewards of diligence are great, but it is not always easy. And that's what we want to focus on today. A few years ago, whenever I would log into my Facebook or Instagram accounts, I started to see memes and reels that would say, "Choose your hard." And I don't know who came up with this concept, but I was immediately drawn to it because the ideas were just so powerful. These memes and these reels would say this: marriage is hard, divorce is hard, choose your hard. Obesity is hard, being fit is hard, choose your hard. Being in debt is hard, being financially disciplined is hard, choose your hard. Communication is hard. Not communicating is hard. Choose your hard. Life will never be easy. It will always be hard, but we can choose our hard. Pick wisely. Life is full of hard decisions, and life requires hard work. But God allows us to have the free will to choose our hard. He allows us to choose our path. He allows us to make choices, some of which can alter the course of our future for a very long time, maybe even forever, until the day that we die, maybe even beyond that. There is an idea out there that is often taught in religious circles that because God is in control, that He chooses to control every aspect there is of our lives. Therefore, if it happens and we do this or that, it was meant to be. And let me just say that that is a false concept. Just because God has the power to control everything we do, that doesn't mean that He chooses to do that. And the Bible indicates that He doesn't choose to control every aspect of our lives because we serve a God of choice. When He created us, He did not create robots off of an assembly line that are programmed to guide us in whatever direction the remote control wishes. No, He gave us free will to choose. Joshua emphasized this idea right after the Israelites were allowed to conquer the land of Canaan and take possession of it. In Joshua chapter 24 and verse 15, he said, "Choose for yourselves today whom you will serve." And then he goes on to say, "But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." The choice was not figured out beforehand. They had a free will decision to make. In Matthew chapter 7 and verse 13 and verse 14, Jesus emphasized this point when He said, "Enter through the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction, and there are many who enter through it. For the gate is small, and the way is narrow that leads to life, and there are few who find it. We get to choose the broad way or the narrow way. God leaves that decision completely up to us. Therefore, we must choose wisely. And when we do that, it will sometimes be very hard. But diligent choices are often hard. Because when we make such choices, we may be giving up something that we want for something that is better. We may be even giving up something that is good in and of itself for something that is best. We have to choose our hard. But not only do we have to choose our hard, we have to take those choices and live with the outcomes of those choices and work really hard in the things that we do so that we can accomplish something great for our lives. And that brings us to some things that the wise man says in the book of Proverbs in the Bible. Now, the Bible is filled with what we would call absolute objective truths. But it is important to remember that the book of Proverbs is not filled with absolute truths. They are general truths. They are wise sayings that give us the option to choose our path. And these options come with either a positive reward or a negative reward. Therefore, we must choose wisely in order to be diligent, and hopefully we will get the right outcome. And generally speaking, if we do the right things, we will get the right outcome. But that doesn't mean that we won't face adversity in life. It doesn't mean that it will always work out exactly like the proverb says. And why is that? It's because the Proverbs are general truths. So let's look at 5 of these Proverbs together today that relate to the subject and principle of hard work. First, in Proverbs chapter 10 and verse 4, the wise man says, "Poor is he who works with a negligent hand, but the hand of the diligent makes rich." So generally speaking, if we work with negligence, we will be poor. And if we work with diligence, we will be a lot better off. In Proverbs chapter 12 and verse 24, he goes on to say, "The hand of the diligent will rule, but the slack hand will be put to forced labor." The wise man teaches us here that generally speaking, if you want to be promoted to positions of influence, you have to be diligent. Now that doesn't mean that this will always be the outcome, but lazy people don't often get promoted, and even if they do, they will more than likely fail. Just a few verses later in Proverbs 12 and verse 27, he goes on to say, "A lazy man does not roast his prey, but the precious possession of a man is diligence." A diligent man has what he needs to survive. He has food and the other basic necessities of life. But a lazy man doesn't realize that the accumulation of food and the necessities of life is not a result of his own wishes, but they are a result of diligence. You see, lazy people fail because in this proverb, the lazy man will have to always rely on others to take care of him because he lacked diligence in his life. It reminds me of what Paul said in 2 Thessalonians 3 and verse 10. If anyone is not willing to work, then he is not to eat either. You see, diligence requires hard work. Even in the simple things that we often take for granted, even in providing for basic things like our food, clothing, and shelter, we must be diligent. In the next chapter, in Proverbs 13 and verse 4, it says, "The soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing, but the soul of the diligent is made fat." Do you want to be satisfied in your life? Then don't be lazy. It's that simple. Be diligent. And finally, in Proverbs 21 and verse 5, the wise man says, "The plans of the diligent lead surely to advantage, but everyone who is hasty comes surely to poverty." Diligent people make wise choices. They plan for the future. They set goals. They take steps to achieve those goals. But on the other hand, hasty people are tossed here and there by the wind. They try things because those things sound good to them in the moment. The reward sounds great, and they crave the reward, but they are not willing to plan the work and work the plan. They are not willing to work hard with their intellect and reasoning skills. They are not willing to learn new things and grow. You see, diligence is not just about being willing to work hard physically. It is also about working hard mentally and emotionally. Diligence is a physical, mental, and emotional process, and it takes a lot of hard work. Whenever Mallory and I set New Year's resolutions, we often talk about what we want to accomplish in the new year. And we spend a lot of time talking about the what, the why, and the how, just like I mentioned in episode 1. And each year, we plan and we set goals for various things as it relates to our faith and to our overall spirituality. And I want to share these things with you because I think these things have helped us to be more diligent in our lives. First, we make plans for our overall relationship as a couple. What are we going to do in the coming year to grow closer to each other and, more importantly, closer to the Lord? What are some specific things that we want to do, and are these things realistic? Why do we want to do these things? And how often are we going to do them? How are we going to do them? Then we make plans for our spiritual growth. What are we going to do as a couple? And this can apply to individuals who aren't married too, but what are we going to do as a couple to grow spiritually? What part of the Bible am I going to read and study this year? Is my goal realistic? And I say that here because a lot of times when we go into a year thinking, I'm going to read the whole Bible, that we're actually going to be able to do that. And for you, that may be realistic. But for others, that is not very realistic. So my encouragement to you is to start out small. Why are you going to focus on this area of the scriptures this year? And how do you plan to do that? When will you do it? And how often are you going to do it? And also, what about my prayer life? What specifically do I need to work on, and why am I working on it? And how do I propose to be the most effective person in my prayer life as I possibly can and as I strive to grow? Next, we make plans for our career and our finances. What do we want to accomplish in our careers? What do we want to accomplish financially in the next year? Why is this important to us? And how do we plan to do it? And finally, we make plans for our local church work. What do we want to accomplish for the benefit of our brothers and sisters in Christ? Do we want to be more hospitable as individuals? Do we want to host a Bible study or talk about a particular topic in a certain Bible study? Do we want to make more of our time available to serve others in other ways? Why are we wanting to grow in this area this year, and how are we going to make it happen? In addition to this, we also make goals as parents. What do we want to do to train our children in the Lord and to bring them up in the way that they should go? And that involves 3 basic things. First, it involves developmental goals. Where are our children developmentally, and what needs to improve in the next year? And what can we do as parents to help them? Second, it involves spiritual goals. Things that we would like them to accomplish that would help them in their spiritual development and in their relationship with God. And that could range from things like learning the books of the Bible to learning how to apply Bible stories to their own lives. And as they get older and mature physically, the goals get a little more challenging. And we focus on what we are doing as parents to help our children achieve these goals. Finally, we set social goals for our children and for what we can do as parents to help them grow socially. And that could range from getting them involved in sports or musical activities or extracurricular activities in other things that will help them learn to properly interact with other people. Here's what I want you to see today. Diligence is hard work, and this hard work involves 2 basic things. First, it involves planning, which involves making decisions, choosing, and developing a process. Some of those decisions are very hard decisions. And number 2, it involves following the process. You plan your work and you work your plan. Listen, when individuals are successful and when couples are successful and when whole families are successful, that does not happen by accident. Someone once said to me and my wife, "Your family seems to have it all together. You guys are so lucky." Well, first of all, we don't always have it together like we want. But in that moment, I wanted to say to that person, luck has nothing to do with it. And whatever we have been able to successfully accomplish in our home, and believe me, there's a lot of work that we have to do, but whatever we've been able to accomplish, it was accomplished by hard work and diligence, and luck had nothing to do with it. So be diligent, work hard, and join us next time for another episode of Due Diligence.
Don't forget to subscribe on all major platforms and visit our website at dudiligencepodcast.com.